Hello YouTube fam, welcome back to our channel. In this channel, we will be discussing various topics in the exciting world of AI, machine learning, and computer vision. Our content is crafted by our awesome human team, but here's the magic. It's finely tuned and optimized by our AI wizards, bringing you top-notch information. And guess what? The presentation is delivered to you by our AI hosts and voiced by our incredible AI avatars. Let's get started. In today's video, we are going to discuss about creating custom versions of ChatGPT that combine instructions and actions to get data from external websites. First up, we will create a custom GPT using specific instructions. Next, we will create a custom GPT using custom action with Open AI Schema. Actions in Custom GPT refer to the functionality that allows the language model to interact with external tools or perform specialized tasks beyond generating text. In the context of OpenAI's GPT models, these actions typically involve interfacing with additional tools or plugins that extend the model's capabilities. Finally, we will create a custom GPT using a custom action, OpenAI Schema, and API key authorization. In real scenarios, we will be dealing with websites which will need us to provide API keys to access the information. So this example will use API key authorization. Let us dive deep in. We will see how to create a custom GPT. First, click on Explore GPTs in the left-hand side. It shows all existing custom GPTs. On the right-hand top corner, there is a Create button. Click on that. We can use either the GPT Builder Create section or the Configure section. We will use the Configure section. We will name our GPT as Daily Kids Jester. We will set the description to say Tell Kid-Friendly Jokes. Configure section. Okay, the instructions part is the most important part. Here we provide instructions as to how our GPT should behave. We will instruct it to tell kids-friendly joke. We will also specify it to tell animal jokes. This is where the custom part comes in, where we are instructing the GP to tell an animal-friendly kids joke. We will explicitly ask it to focus on animal-related joke. Okay, all right. We can now create a logo for it. We will use the DALL-E image generator to create the image. We can also upload our own image if we have it. We can see that it is still generating the image. The image generation takes about 15 to 20 seconds. If we do not like the image it generated, we can ask it to regenerate it. Okay, all right, it's still spinning. It came up with a colorful clown hat. Let's keep it. Now our instructions and logo are created. We can proceed to save the GPT. In the right-hand top corner, we have a Save button. We can save it for ourselves or publish for everyone to use. If we publish for everyone, it will be available for all. For now, let us say Only Me. Now our custom GPT is ready. We can then ask it to tell a joke. This is where the custom part comes in. We just asked it to tell a joke. We did not prompt it with the criteria that it should be kid-friendly. We also did not message anything about animals. OutGPT knows that it has to tell a kid-friendly joke, and also it should be animal jokes. So, for the second example, we will create a custom GPT using custom action. The custom action will get data from external web's petstore.swagger. This website does not need any authentication mechanism. We will data for a particular pet using the API get/pet ID. We can see how our request URL should look like. It also describes how the response is going to look like. Both of these are needed for us to come up with OpenAI Schema needed for the custom action. So ChatGPT has created a GPT called Actions GPT, which helps us to come up with the OpenAI Schema. We go to the Export GPT section and search for Actions GPT. Actions GPT helps create OpenAI specifications using the website API documentation and URL. All right, we provide it with all the details about the API endpoints we want to use, the website, which has documentation about the API. We also need to provide it with the response format, If we have a curl command, we can provide that as well. Or we can provide it with a description of the API call and the responses. Okay. For our use case, we will provide it with the petstore.swagger.api documentation link. We will instruct it to make the spec by reading through the link and also ask it to look at the JSON response format for the getPetAPI call. We can include any number of requests and responses as needed. Now we have the message ready. We then submit the message to the Actions GPT. Actions GPT now begins its part of the work. We can see it searches for the website and reads through the documentation and comes up with the Open AI spec. Since it talks to the external website, this part takes a few seconds. Let us wait for it to come up with the spec. The spec includes the servers from where to get the data from. The next part contains the request format, which in our case is the getPetById operation with the parameters. The next part is the response part. It mentions the different objects in the message, what their data types are, and so on. It mentions properties like name of the pet, photo URLs, status, pet type, description, among other things. The response section handles both successful and error scenarios. We have the copy code option in the top right-hand side. Let us copy that as we will need it later. Okay. Now we can start creating our custom GPT. We will use the Configure section. We will name our GPT as Pet Data Fetcher. We will provide a good description for it. We will say it uses custom actions to get data from external website. Okay. Next we come to the instructions part. Instructions part are the most important. Instructions tell GPT what it is supposed to do and what it should not do. Here we instruct it to use custom actions to get data from external website. We will also explicitly mention it to use the getPetById custom action we will specify in the action part of the configuration. Okay, good. In this way, our GPT can do the action and talk to the external website to get the needed information. We will use the spec we copied earlier from the Actions GPT. All right, let us read our instruction and see if it looks good. It seems clear enough for GPT to understand that it needs to use custom action. Okay, once we are done with the instruction, we can scroll down to the action section. We will leave the capabilities for web browsing and DAL-E as it is. Now we will click on Create New Action button. The first section is authentication. It has three options: None, API Key, and OAuth. For our current use case, we will select None. Next we come to the Schema section. Here we paste the Open AI spec we copied from Actions GPT. We will look for any errors or warnings. Since it warns about multiple servers, we will remove the sandbox server. Once we remove it, we can see that the errors have disappeared. We can see the available action, which is getPetById. It uses the get method. If we want, we can test the connectivity. We will look at the spec once more. We can see that the getPetById takes in an input parameter, pet ID, of type integer. The next part is the response part. It mentions the different objects in the message, what their data types are, and so on. It mentions properties like name of the pet, photo URLs, status, pet type, description, among other things. All right, we are done with the action part. Let us save our GPT. Now our GPT is ready to use. We will ask it display pet information for ID 10. The GPT asks us if we are okay with connecting to the external website. It asks us if we would like to allow or deny the request. All right, we click on Allow. Now it shows that it is starting our custom action. It takes a few seconds to get the needed information. It has talked to petstore.swagger.io and retrieved the information for pet ID 10. We can see that the name for pet ID 10 is doggy, and so on. All right, we are done with this example of using custom action to get data from external website without any authentication. Next up, we will see how to use API keys. In this example, we will see how to create a custom GPT with custom action to get data from an external website using an API key. We will use NASDAQ data link for our illustration. We can go to docs.data.nasdaq.com and look at different providers. One such provider is Quandl, and it has a vast collection of free and open data collected from different organizations. We can use it without paying for a limited set of data, but we must include your API key with every request you make. We must append our API key to our requests using the API key parameter. API key equals your API key. To get an API key, please sign up for a free Quandl account. Okay? We can go to data.nasdaq.com/signup. We can enter details like username, email, etc. All right, once we sign up, we can then log into the account. On the right-hand top corner, we can see a button for account settings. Click on the account settings page. Good. We can then find our API key on our account settings page. We will use this API key later on. Let us look at the documentation for Quandl API. Let us see how to get time series data from this documentation. All right, for example, this call returns data from a specific time series database. quandl.com/API/v3 datasets wiki/fb data.json API key your API key. We can see that it takes input parameters like stock symbol and our API key. We can also look at examples for using the start date and end date parameters. If we scroll down, we can also see samples for the JSON responses. Let us scroll down. Here we can see an example response for a particular time series API call. All right, the response has details like database code, stock symbol, start date, end date. It also has the column names. More importantly, the data part contains the actual data we need, the open and close prices for the particular stock. Actions GPT helps create Open AI specifications. We provide it with all the details about the API endpoints we want to use. We can provide the website, which has documentation about the API. We also need to provide it with the response format. If we have a curl command, we can provide that as well. For our use case, we will provide it with the docs.data.nasdaq.com API documentation link. We will instruct it to make the spec by reading through the link for both request and response. Once we submit the message, we can see it searches for the website and reads through the documentation and comes up with the OpenAI spec. The spec includes the servers from where to get the data from. The next part contains the request format, which in our case is the getIm series data operation with the parameters. The next part is the response part. It mentions the different objects in the message, what their data types are, and so on. We have the copy code option in the top right-hand side. Let's copy that as we will need it later. As a next step, we will create our custom GPT. We will use the configure section. We will name the GPT as NSQuote and add a description. Instructions are the most important part as they instruct the GPT as to what to do. We will use the following instruction. I'm designed to retrieve real-time stock quotes from the NASDAQ using the custom action get data. When a user provides me with a company's symbol, it will use the API key provided when setting up the custom action. After that, we will scroll down and click Create New Action. The first thing we will do is choose the authentication type. Click on Authentication, and we will see three options. For our current use case, choose API key. In the text box, paste the API key we got from our Quandl NASDAQ data link account. After we paste it, it will be shown as hidden. Choose Basic as the auth type. Click Save. Next, we will paste the Open AI spec we got from Actions GPT. The spec includes the servers from where to get the data from. The next part contains the request format, which in our case is the get data operation with the parameters like the stock symbol, API key, start date, end date. The next part is the response part. The data part contains the actual data we need, the open and close prices for the particular stock. We will save the GPT and publish it. Now that our custom GPT NS quote is ready, we can ask it to show stock prices for a stock symbol for the dates we specify. For example, we will ask it to show data for symbol AAPL, start date 2017-0103, and end date 2017-0104. Once we send the message, we can see that it's starting our custom action. It asks us if we would like to allow or deny the request. All right, we click on Allow. Now it shows that it is talking to the external API in data.nasdaq.com. Once it gets data from that external API, it starts showing the data. We can see it displays the open-close prices for AAPL for both the dates 2017-013 and 2017-0104. So that is it. We have successfully built a custom GPT with custom action, which uses API key authentication to get data from the external API. And there you have it. To summarize, first we created a custom GPT using specific instructions to tell a kid-friendly animal joke. Next, we created a custom GPT using custom action with Open AI Schema. We used the Actions GPT to give us the OpenAI spec based on the pet store website. This example did not involve any authentication mechanism. Finally, we created a custom GPT using a custom action, OpenAI Schema, and API key authorization. We used the Actions GPT to give us the OpenAI spec based on the NASDAQ data link website. This example used API key authentication mechanism. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more exciting adventures in the world of AI and machine learning. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more tech talks, and ring that notification bell to stay updated on our future explorations. Until next time, happy coding and keep the curiosity alive. Thanks for watching.